Take your name tag with me.
I am.
This is Phil's spot.
Yeah, that's right.
Mind if I put this in my answer?
I don't care what you do.
Is it the right name? Well, so, that's the reason I asked. It said that on the back.
You know, I just put
You're
this out, but
reusing.
I may as well recycle while I can.
Well, we're trying to.
You know, hey, you would be okay.
Hey, you would be
I
fine.
answer to that. I answer to that.
So the.
Okay, next.
So, but I don't know that there's anything.
Boy, nice pen.
It is a nice pen.
Isn't it amazing how,
I could do that if you want. You can.
how you
And then all that you guys
see those
Yeah.
and react to nice
Yeah.
pen?
It's Judy, it's up there. Because I don't know her background. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Notice the pen.
I used to have kind of expensive pens, but I lost them all.
Do you ever,
And now I don't lose any of my cheap pens.
do you ever notice how I gravitate from, I like this pen for a while, and then I go, oh, I like this one better. I migrate.
Like that one, I want that one.
I migrate. I migrate.
My mom and dad gave me a Mont Blanc pen for my 40th birthday. And I had it for 10, 12 years, and then just boom, it's gone. And I had some other nice cross pens and water pens. I can't lose these.
Cox, last name Cox.
You want to really make sure you don't lose them, tape a flower to them or something.
Yeah, right.
Or a plastic spoon.
Yeah. Oh, golly. I hope this isn't a 3-hour.
I don't think it should be.
4. Going for 4.
Boy.
Well, if you see me like this, you'll know I'm checked out.
Okay, it's 5:30. We will call this Wednesday, July 23rd, meeting of the TIF Advisory Committee to order. I'd like to inform the public about the location of the Open Meetings Act posted in the northwest corner of the council chambers. Kylie, roll call, please.
Cox. Einspar. Here. Caney. Here. Lindsay. Here. McKenzie.
Here.
Shukai.
Here.
J. Sehi. Here. S. Sehi.
Here.
Steiner.
Here.
Waite.
Here.
Wyrick.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Okay, the first order, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
That's so moved. Second.
Motion and second. All those voting in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the first item of business is a presentation by Tara Vasicek, the city administrator of the city of Columbus, on Columbus's Vitality Village project. And I will let Tara talk about that project. I've been intrigued by it. It's very innovative, and I thought that would be a very helpful project for the city of Norfolk to look at for potential uses here, or at least to learn some of their processes. So Tara, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you for having me. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. Vitality Village is one of many TIF projects in the city of Columbus. It's only unique, I guess, because the city of Columbus acted as the developer, which enabled us to do some unique things with the development. TIF certainly isn't unique to housing in Columbus, but what's unique to TIF and housing on this project is because we acted as the developer, we were able to add in some covenants, sell lots at cheaper than market rate, because obviously, since we're not a developer, we're not looking, or we don't need to make a profit. We used in-house engineering to save money. Lots of things we did to make this whole project work. On page 6 of the packet you all have in front of you is a development timeline overview, I guess I would say, or how we did this project in a nutshell. The reason the City Council wanted us to move forward with Vitality Village was because year after year in our strategic planning efforts, housing always came to the top of the list, particularly workforce housing. We were not trying to build affordable housing. We were really trying to build workforce housing. So the council used some of their discretionary sales tax funds to move forward with Vitality Village. So the goal of the project was to leverage that sales tax revenue and create basically as many doors. I'm so sorry.
Are you still with us, Tara? Tara, are you with us?
We might have lost her.
There was one sitting out there. I was putting them out. That's Bob.
I think it was. He's sitting next to Tyler again.
So what is that? 360.
Please enter.
We did that same kind of thing in Hastings.
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
Okay, we got you back?
I'm so sorry about that.
No problem, no problem.
Came home and my child walked in with a dog.
No problem.
So anyway, the Vitality Village, I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback.
Are you getting echo back from us?
No, I'm just hearing myself.
Okay. I think that happens in these chambers, the way this is hooked up, so.
Oh, well, it wasn't happening before, so that's okay. I'll just try to ignore it. So we proceeded with the Vitality Village project and first worked on attaining land. So you'll see there that was item 1. We did an RFP for land in the community. I don't know how detailed you want me to get with all of these things, but basically once we found our land, we got all of, just like a developer would, we got our zoning approval, our tax increment financing approvals, platting all done before we closed on the land. So we knew that the project wouldn't get held up. And then we moved forward with designing the subdivision, and concurrently with that, we did a RFP to select builders in the project, and we did a lot of legwork to engage builders before we sent that RFP out so that we knew we would get responses. And we did. We sent out about 70 different packages, that housing builder RFPs, and we got quite a few submittals and a few really great ones that we ended up entering into a purchase agreement with. The property transfers and covenants, we decided to transfer Vitality Village into the Community Development Agency's name for a variety of reasons, namely because we'd be holding the land until we sold it to developers, and we were utilizing tax increment financing, all those sorts of things. We did do extensive negotiation with the builders that we selected to try to get to kind of a middle ground on the CCREs, mostly the covenants that you see attached in your document. But that was that was a long process. It was very unique for us when we did it. But again, since the city was the developer and the council had established very clear goals about, or I guess bookends maybe is a better way to say them, about what we would and what we would not do with Vitality Village since the city was acting as the developer. So we were able to accomplish some covenants. They certainly weren't as maybe restrictive or as tight as the council would have originally liked, but we got to a good middle ground for the development. We installed all of the infrastructure, finalized purchase agreements. You can see there on page 6, the bottom portion is our financial sources and uses. I kept it very simple for this handout. Like I said, we used sales tax, $1 million of sales tax, and then we used tax increment financing, which will pay for all of the rest of the expenses for Vitality Village. And then the city will be made whole through the sale of all of that land to the developers and the TIF repayment. If you guys, I'm happy to answer all the questions. I don't want to belabor any points that you don't particularly care about.
I think you answered one of the questions. I've got you off mute, so hopefully it's not echoing too bad for you now.
No.
So basically you said the city was made whole, so there really was no out-of-pocket dollars on the city's part for the project once it's paid for, correct?
I said the city will be made whole
Right.
as the TIF gets repaid.
Okay.
Yes, that is accurate. We aren't today, but once, within the 15 years, the TIF window, the city will be. And the city council decided to use some utility funds to self-finance that TIF note. So we did not issue any long-term debt for Vitality Village. That TIF, as the proceeds come in, it will just reimburse our utility fund interest.
And when I talked to you before, you said this development would have approximately 300 doors, is that correct?
We are sitting at 327 right now.
And was that the number of doors that you were planning or committed, or what was the plan versus the committed at this point in time?
We had planned a little bit more than that, but then once we kind of did some more public engagement, we decided to do a portion of it a little less dense and a portion of it a little more dense. So, and the apartment builder wanted to have some more green space. So we felt like our site is 24 acres. So 327 units on 24 acres, we were definitely met our goal.
And when did you break ground on the property?
Last spring.
Spring of '24?
Correct.
And do you have all the property committed to developers now?
We do, except a couple of the single-family lots. The single-family lots have been the hardest to sell.
So how many of those do you have left to sell roughly?
We have 9 single-family lots to sell. All the single-family lots, all the rest of the lots are done and sold.
Okay. I think that's amazing to have broken ground a little over a year ago and have commitments to build and to purchase the ground in just over a year.
Jim, can you ask her how many
Thank you.
are
It's been
built?
good. We've, the apartments already started. We let them start last fall, so their first building is already, the structure is up.
Okay.
Any occupancies yet?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and ask. I think she could probably give you.
Do you have any occupancies yet? It probably doesn't sound like it if the apartments are just up.
Yeah, the apartment complex, one building is up, and then the townhomes, there are 10 foundations poured, and maybe 4 of those units are the structures up, and they'll just work through all of them at once. So we did put, and you can see it if you look through the purchase agreement that I provided, all of the builders have 24 months to finish. We put that restriction or that requirement in because obviously to benefit fully from the TIF, we need the full increment as soon as possible. So 2 years we felt like was a reasonable amount of time to finish their projects.
Is that finished from the time they sign the contract, or what's the starting point?
Yes, the purchase agreement.
So what are the price points, like you have covenants, I think it kind of regulates or rough price points of the houses and then the apartment rentals.
We'll jump into those covenants and we'll get that up on the screen here.
I have a question. The utility funds that,
we can hear her a lot easier than she can hear us. So if you're on this side of the room or speaking from here, make sure you talk slowly and enunciate so she can fully understand. Okay.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
so the TIF funds that you funded from the utility funds, then that's what will become your bond to be paid back?
Right. So how TIF works is we issued a bond only because you have to issue a bond to get the reimbursement, the increment. But we didn't actually go to a financial institution and take out debt. We used cash we have. We self-funded that bond. So as our bills came in for Vitality Village, we paid them with cash we have, and then we issued the bond so that the increment can repay the cash we spend.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that part? I'm gonna jump into the covenants unless anybody's got any other questions on this one. Okay. I had some questions on the covenants, because I thought those have some great value for the city potentially. On page 28, Kylie, if you can jump to that page in the packet. Section 2.3 talks about owner occupied, says the single family lots must be owner occupied, and an owner may not allow any person other than the owner or such owner's immediate family to occupy a lot. So it sounds like they can't build single family rentals, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then on page 39 of the packet, section 8.1 through 8.2 talks about lot sale and buyback. Can you explain what the thought process was behind that, or why that's in there?
Because if a developer buys these and then doesn't get building quick enough, we want to be able to basically take the lots back and get them in somebody else's hand that will build them out quickly. Because again, the tax increment financing does us absolutely no good for undeveloped dirt.
Gotcha. Very good. And then on page 41, the option to purchase in 6 calendar months. Can you explain the thought process behind that, section 8.3?
Again, if they don't proceed with their plans to develop, we'll exercise our right to purchase the lots back.
Okay. And so that's 6 months, so they've got 24 months to finish, so you're saying if they're not breaking ground in 6 months, you have the option to buy it back?
Correct.
Okay. That's a pretty short time.
And there's other timelines in here too, like they have to have their building plans into the community development department within so many days, and there's other timelines, but yeah, we're not looking to sell these lots. We weren't looking to sell these lots to a developer and then have them build at their whim over the next 5 to 10 years, because that would give us no solid increment on the tax increment financing.
I think that's extremely important to us as a committee, because we've had redevelopment agreements where the property has sat undeveloped, many of the lots undeveloped for years and years. And so I think that's an important thing for potentially this committee to consider as a recommended guideline going down the road.
Sure, we don't do that on all TIF projects, but we do in a redevelopment contract, they need to start within so much time if it's not the city being involved. But we put that in the purchase agreements here because, again, it's the city's money that's on the line here if the TIF doesn't pay like we planned for it to. So we're just putting every safeguard in place to make sure that revenue comes in to repay those utility funds.
So the benefit of the city doing this project is you have more control and you are able to enforce that to make sure that the project moves along as expected.
Right.
And then page 53 of the packet, section 302, talks about no short-term rentals. I assume that's, you just don't want those to be Airbnbs, something like that?
Correct.
Okay. And then page 54 is all of the rental rate restrictions. And I'll just run through those and then you can comment when I'm done, but $9.95 a month for a studio apartment, $11.50 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, $11.95 a month for a large one-bedroom, $13.95 a month for a two-bedroom, $14.50 a month for a large two-bedroom, $16.50 a month for a three-bedroom, $1,800 a month for a townhome, and $1,750 a month for a row home unit. You mentioned there was negotiations that went on and you weren't always completely happy with the negotiation. Were these rental rates, did you want them to be a little bit better, or were these what you expected, or what's your thoughts on those?
We wanted them to be a little lower, of course, but what we were willing to compromise a little bit on the start number because we weren't willing to compromise on the escalation, which is section 404 and then 405. So what's really important about Vitality Village is for the next 15 years, the term of the TIF, the owners of rental units there can't escalate beyond these covenants, can't escalate the rent beyond what these covenants allow. And that was important to the council because we have given TIF to a lot of developments where, you know, it's just a standard development. And then we hear complaints that the rents escalate very rapidly. And that's been disappointing to the council, so that's why we put this escalation limit in.
And I think that's a great covenant to have, because we have the same thing here in Norfolk, I believe, where our rates are high. They're in some cases unaffordable, and to have such a covenant ensures that if you're going to give out TIF money, that our residents receive some of the benefit in rent controls. Do you have any concerns? I know the legislature passed something on rent controls, but that was, I believe, if it was not in some kind of an agreement. Have you looked at that, what the legislature passed or was trying to pass?
Well, our attorney would have looked at all of that, I'm sure, but I don't believe that we'll have any issues with this. They entered into these purchase agreements well knowing the covenants in place. So again, though, I don't think that I would be able to get a standard developer to agree to these terms. Maybe something similar, but I think if a apartment developer came into town and said, I want to buy 10 acres and put up 100 units, and I came to them with a development agreement that had a rent control term like this, I think they'd go over to Grand Island or Kearney or somewhere else. I don't think it's just not mainstream enough in the standard market for developers to have an appetite for that. We were able to do it because we were acting as the developer and we were giving them other benefits like way below market land prices. We shared our TIF with the apartment developer. So there was a lot of other things that went into it that allowed us to put this rent control in the agreement.
Right. I just wonder if there are significant TIF dollars going to that apartment, we want those TIF dollars, in my opinion, to benefit the community and not just benefit the developer, and so there has to be some give and take there, I would think. So your escalation, you said it looks like it's a 2.5% increase or the CPI, is that generally what that is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And then page 56, we go into the price caps, section 501, on the non-rental residential units. And I'll just run through those. Townhome or row home units not to exceed 325,000. Single-family dwellings not to exceed 350,000. Again, were you comfortable with those limits? I assume you might have wanted those to be lower too?
Yeah, honestly, we followed the rural workforce housing, their new standards on that, and we use workforce housing TIF. So those numbers came from that. I think everybody would love to have less expensive units, but unfortunately that's just not the reality that we're living in right now. And we wanted this subdivision to be quality.
And then section 503, subsequent transfers. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
So that's on owner-occupied, single-family, detached homes. The first buyer, the sale price has to meet those, that 350 or less. And then if, the reason I guess for this section is we didn't want a single-family detached home to be bought and then they realized that if they sold it, they could make a quick $100,000 because the market for a similar home in another part of town is $450,000. So this section basically puts a cap on the sale price of those homes for that same 15 years. So basically, people can't go and buy them and flip them and sell them and make a huge profit on them.
Gotcha. And then page 61 talks about the affordability period, and you already touched on that. So those covenants on affordability, both the rental rates and the selling prices, are in effect for the 15-year TIF period, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Are there minimum sizes for the single-family dwellings?
We just our land development ordinance minimums.
Okay.
There isn't an additional minimums in this subdivision.
So what would your current ordinance minimum be?
We actually have significantly overhauled our land development ordinance. We regulate single-family home size by the size of the lot. So I can't really say there's no, like, we have minimum lot sizes, and that dictates how big or small of a home you can put on it. Does that make sense? So there is no one-size-fits-all answer. Most communities still have the kind of old-school land development ordinance where it's 1,200 square feet. We don't do that anymore. So I can't really give you a square footage.
Any other questions?
I had another one. So this looks like it's going to take a lot of time to kind of manage this. Personnel-wise, having the city develop this, did that require you to hire additional personnel to handle the management of this?
No, that would have been nice. Nope. It was just our team that did it. It was a lot of work, and we were on a very escalated timeline to make it all work. But our engineering department, our planning and community development department personnel were perfectly capable. We definitely stretched our abilities a little bit, but I think it turned out really good, and everybody's very proud of it.
And as you go forward and enforce these things, that's going to fall on your department too, is that correct?
Correct.
Have you had to repurchase any lots yet?
Not yet.
Are you?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I hope
curious.
not.
Are there any lower level perks that the builders are eligible for because they're participating in this?
I'm not sure. Did you hear that question?
I did not.
You want to get closer to the mic?
Okay. Are there any lower level perks at the builder level that they're eligible for, that they're going after because they are agreeing to all of these requirements? Is there anything there that you're seeing at all?
He was asking you.
No.
No?
Did you hear that question?
Yeah, I did, and there isn't anything, no.
The purchase price on the land was very low for those
Right,
builders.
right, right.
Okay, okay. That's probably the main perk, that's the main perk I would assume then, the low
That's-
price on the land?
Exactly right.
Okay. Okay.
So you worked with a developer or somebody on the apartments, you kind of partnered with somebody, what did they bring to the table, or why did you do that on the apartments? So I'm assuming on the apartments, somebody else is handling that and not your team, am I correct?
We're not building anything besides infrastructure. So the apartment is just the same as the townhomes, is just the same as the single family. We entered into a purchase agreement with the builder of the apartment complex, just like we did with Bierman for these townhomes, the purchase agreement that's before you. So they didn't help us do anything except their cost, their investment in Vitality Village is obviously considerably higher than anybody else's. So we shared TIF with them. And we obviously, again, the purchase price of the land was definitely incentivized towards higher density. So that's why they came to Columbus. Our benefit is 280 units.
280 apartment units?
Correct.
Okay.
And we were very vocal, I guess, in the fact that we really wanted 2- and 3-bedroom apartments, and they were willing to do that as well. Apartment builders generally don't like to do that, but
So
we
you-
needed it. Our housing study showed it, so that's why.
You mentioned that you sent out 70 packages and got back a number of submittals. Can you share how many submittals came back and then how many were successful?
Well, we got around, I think, 18 good quality, complete submittals, but we only moved forward with 5. We took the best of the best. I negotiated with probably 10 of them preliminarily, and then, whittled it down to what we ended up with.
Were you surprised? I mean, that sounds like a lot of responses. I'm rather surprised. Did that surprise you at all?
We did a lot of legwork before we put that RFP out. So I would say 15 of them I wasn't surprised by, but there was a few that slipped in that we weren't really expecting.
Are those mostly local builders to you guys, or are they regional, or the ones that are building the single-family especially?
Both. It was both local builders and from around Nebraska.
Was there any national interest at all, or did you send out nationally at all?
No, we didn't. We didn't see the need for it.
Any other questions?
Is this the only type of TIF funding you're using now, or do you still allow the previous model you used? It's all just this now?
No. This is very unique and probably won't happen again unless the city moves forward with another housing subdivision. We might use bits and pieces of this, but the city of Columbus, I don't know, years ago, we implemented kind of a tax increment financing policy. So basic things like the city requires if they're getting TIF, they always carry the note and the risk. The city never does. They're always required to install infrastructure if they're receiving TIF. We've put in place a number of things. We would never participate in TIF for anything above workforce level housing. We put those kinds of things in place already, so we don't do a whole lot of this type of covenant work in our other housing TIF projects.
Thank you.
Do you know what percentage of Columbus has been declared blighted and substandard, or whatever the current term is?
24%.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tara, thank you again very, very much for your time and sharing what your project is. It's extremely helpful and very informative.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Ready for the next one?
What was that lady's name again? Mike, Tara?
Kylie will need to make,
Kylie, I might have you help us
another phone
dial
call.
in when we're,
Situation that they got into.
Previously was a city administrator in New York. It's been there for probably 8 or 10 years.
It is the work number there.
Work, okay.
Annexation or something. That was excellent. They built that
Is
pipe.
that work
Yeah.
number?
That extension, okay.
They got some sand pit waves out there that were just waiting to be taken because they were so close there. They had a conflict of interest with their city attorney.
Please.
Is that where this is? Up there?
City Hall is currently closed. If you would like to leave a voicemail, please select from the following options. For building code,
I get confused with their 22nd Street, 22nd Avenue light.
This is Judy.
Hi Judy, this is,
hi Judy, this is Troy Wyrick, and our group, thank you for sticking around late and helping us out today. Judy was brought to our attention in kind of research on doing a great job with micro TIF in North Platte. And so we had some preliminary discussions and would like to move this second half of this meeting into kind of to talk a little bit deeper about micro TIF. And again, North Platte's done a good job, and so we reached out to Judy. Her name's Judy Clark, and she is the, let you tell your, she is the North Platte
I'm the
Development
development
Director,
director.
right? And you wore a lot of hats, though, you said the other day, so.
I do,
So
yeah.
I got a little confused on which all of them, so anyway. So thanks for helping us today.
No problem.
So you had, you guys in North Platte have done a lot of several micro TIF projects. And maybe if you could just kind of give an overall view on kind of the processes that you use. And again, we talked the other day, but we'll re-bring that information to our group on maybe some successes and some ways, creative ways you've used micro TIF, along with kind of who it benefits for you and that as well, if you would like
Okay.
to.
Okay, so micro TIF was introduced several years ago by Nebraska legislature, and I believe the whole intent of micro TIF was to try and benefit those that aren't your larger developers, those individuals that wouldn't qualify for an actual large TIF project. And so micro TIF really focuses on just a individual project, and individuals can recapture expenses for home and commercial repair, rehabilitation. You can replace an existing structure, or you can actually redevelop vacant land. And I apologize if I stutter because I'm getting an echo, so sorry about that. But anyway, micro TIF does have some rules. It follows Nebraska Community Development Law, and you use that to repair, rehabilitate, replace, or redevelop. And again, like I said, it's not a project that's going to be large enough to qualify for TIF. So in order to be micro TIF eligible, there's a lot of things, some regulations that were put in state statute. And the first one is that the redevelopment includes only one project. That project has to be located within a lighted and substandard area that has been within the corporate limits of the city for at least 60 years. And it involves the repair, rehabilitation, or replacement of an existing structure, or involves the redevelopment of a vacant lot, again, that has been platted for at least 60 years. The other thing is a project has to be located in a county that has a population of less than 100,000 inhabitants, and the assessed value of the property that is in that project, when the project is complete, can only be estimated to be, for a single-family structure, no more than $350,000. For a project that involves a multifamily residential or a commercial structure, can't be assessed at more than $1.5 million. And for a project that involves revitalization of a structure that is designated as a National Register of Historic Places, it can't be assessed at over $10 million. And that's when the project is actually complete. So there's several things that you can do if you decide to do a micro TIF project. When you pass a resolution, the state statute allows you to put a limit on how many of them you do a year. I wanted my council to do that when we initially started this. They wanted to wait and see how many TIF projects, micro TIF projects, we actually got before they put any type of a cap on it. So far, we've been doing this since, I believe our first project was 23, and we've got 16, we've awarded 16 micro TIF projects. Now, this is a little bit different than TIF because you don't have a bond associated with it, and it doesn't say this in state statute, but I like to think of it as like a tax rebate. So it still works similar to TIF because you have your base value that you started your project with. So we'll say, just for ease of use, if your assessed value and your base taxes, we'll say, are only $1,000 a year, and you're going to do some rehabilitation on this, and you have 2-year time frame to do whatever it is you're going to do. And in that 2-year time frame, if that assessed value has went up enough to where we'll say now your taxes that you're going to owe for the year is going to be $2,000, the project owner pays that $2,000 like they would with their tax statement, and then they get $1,000 back for the next 15 years. So it's really similar. You go through the similar process as you do TIF. You have to have it approved by your council, and then you do have a resolution that's passed by the CRA. The CRA doesn't actually incur any indebtedness. It's all basically the property owner that has that. So there's really not a lot of skin in the game other than that tax. You don't see the increase in taxes for the next 15 years. The state tried to simplify this a lot, again, because these are for basically individual people's homes or an individual commercial building. And so they just have this one application. It's only $50. That's as much as you can charge for an application. And they submit what they think the cost is going to be for whatever it is they're doing. So let's say they're wanting to put on a new roof, maybe add a garage, maybe do some siding, sidewalk improvements, things like that. Those are things that would all be TIF eligible. And we'll say they think it's going to cost them $300,000 to do this or $200,000 to do this. You look at the cost, so they are supposed to get, estimates of what they believe it's going to cost them. You get to agree that, yeah, it's probably going to cost them that much. So that's what technically their bond amount would be, this $200,000. And then, so for the next 15 years, they get that tax rebate until they either do one of two things. The 15 years expires, or they've actually met the cost that they thought that were going to be associated with that. So we've done 16 different projects. The majority of them have all been residential. Almost all of them have been in the heart of the downtown area, because of the 60-year criteria that you have to be within the city limits for at least 60 years. Most of them have been fairly small projects. We have had a couple that were in our downtown, and so they made apartments in the upper level of the downtown building. Those have been, a little bit larger, but nothing exceedingly large, and I don't know, it seems to have really sparked a lot of development in the downtown area.
Judy, in a lot of cases, your 15-year on most of these projects. Oh, sorry. In a lot of cases, Judy, you're over your 15-year period, you're not going to recoup all of the costs you put in. It just helps, correct? Like, your tax improvement or whatever.
Yeah. I would say the majority of your projects, you're probably only going to capture maybe 15, 20,000, maybe a little bit more, but they're going to put a lot more into that project than what they actually get back. But it does help them. We have had one individual that actually used it to go to a bank to say, look, I'm going to have this money coming in, use it as collateral for my loan.
Have you turned down any projects for any reasons?
Yes. Several of them, most of them, because they just haven't met that criteria of being within city limits for 60 years. I had one individual that really needed some rehab help, and they had been annexed 59 years ago, so we had to turn that project down. We had one project that we had to adjust what they said they were going to be spending their money on, because remember, micro TIF is still TIF, so it has to be a TIF eligible expense that they're going to spend that on. They had put in, it was a little restaurant, little eatery, and they had put in that they wanted to have some expenses for some tables and chairs and a dishwasher. Those things would not be micro TIF eligible because they wouldn't be TIF eligible expenses. So they had came in saying they were going to spend around $500,000. We okayed them to spend around $350, if I remember correctly, because we had to take those expenses out.
We talked earlier, Judy, when Troy and I called you about this, and you mentioned that maybe typically micro TIF might pay for 25% of the project. Is that a good ballpark, roughly?
That's probably a good estimate, yep. It's not going to pay entirely for a project, but you're going to get a little bit of help.
And then I asked you about how do we know that the person who did the project, because there's no requirements to collect receipts from those people who are doing those micro TIF projects. And I said, well, how do you verify that they actually did the work? And you said the assessor goes out and does an inspection when the project is complete. Can you maybe just kind of talk about that for a second?
Yep. So what happens with micro TIF projects, you're given 2 years to complete the project. So they freeze the tax somewhat at that initial year, and then they have a 2-year time frame to complete the project. Once that project is completed, they have to fill out some paperwork at the assessor's office. The assessor then goes out and verifies that they had actually completed work and completed the work that they had said that they were going to complete, and then they reassess the property.
Judy, there was we talked about the blight, like application form and like you kind of have an internal process, like you can blight your guys are blighting in some cases one property or a few properties, but then you have kind of a streamlined process so that it's more affordable. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so some of these areas that individuals are really interested in applying for micro TIF, they haven't been part of a large overall blight study. And so we came up with the idea of, we can, following Nebraska community development law, we can do what we would call a micro blight. That's what we call it, where a property owner has a lot or maybe 2 lots, and it definitely does meet the standards for blighted and substandard. So we came up with this form, and if the area is not currently in a blighted area, they want to blight it, we charge $500 for the fee. We have a form that lines out absolutely everything that they would need in order to become a blighted and substandard declared area, which include pictures, proof of the building, how old the building was, pictures of the area, pictures around it, and they go through that. Essentially, they're doing a blight study. They turn all that into me. I go through it, make sure everything that they have selected, we have kind of check boxes like, yes, it meets this criteria, meets this criteria. I go through and do the same assessment using the data that they provided to me. And then if I don't think that something's quite kosher, then I'll run out and look at the property and see, what I think, if what they're saying is true or not. And we have done 3 micro blight studies on 3 individual lots. And in our opinion, they 100% qualified, just like you would if you did a huge, large blight study. Blight studies typically cost a developer, anywhere from, $20,000 to $40,000 to do. This cost this individual $500.
Does that cover your staff time?
Oh, I would say probably, as long as they do an job with the application that we put together. Because the 3 of them that I have done, there was only one that I actually had to go back out and ask the applicant for more information.
So are a lot of these rehabs and refurbishes and things like that you said that you can use them on bare lot. Have you used them on bare ground? As part one of the question. Part two, I don't think you guys do the land bank, but the land bank thing, but could this, in your opinion, be married with programs like land bank to add more value to, more bang for the buck, really?
Yep. So we had an application for one individual to do a multifamily structure on a vacant lot. He did apply for micro TIF. He is rounding year 2 and has not started anything. So that micro TIF application will become null and void pretty shortly. The other one that we are doing on vacant property, Lincoln County CDC, which is a nonprofit low-income housing developer, has 4 lots in a portion of town that qualifies as being platted for more than 60 years. So they took those 4 lots. They were not in an already designated blighted and substandard area, so they did the micro blight designation. We got that approved for them, and now they are looking at using micro TIF once they have some more funding behind them to help them build 2 apartment complexes on 2 separate parcels. So they'll do 2 TIF, micro TIF requests once they get ready to go. That one probably we won't approve if they come forward with it probably for another couple of years. So no, we've not really done any on vacant lots yet, but should be in the near future. We do not have a land bank right at the present moment. I want to get a land bank started, and a couple of council people want to get a land bank started. I think micro TIF would be a wonderful partner for a land bank. It gives additional incentives for people to build, housing that's $350,000 or less. And so I think it would be an incredible tool to partner with. The Lincoln County CDC, the Community Development Corporation, that is their full intent, is to use micro TIF to also partner with any other grant funds that they get. So yeah, I think it would be a great partnership. I am a staff of 1, and my secretary, I can't discount her because she does an amazing job. But we just haven't had the time to put that land bank together, but that is a goal in the upcoming year.
You mentioned previously that your application fee for micro TIF is $50 and it's not enough. If you had your choice, what would that application fee be that would help cover your costs but not drive away applicants?
Yeah, that's a little tough. I know what their intent is to help the little guys, so a $50 application fee was, what the state legislature put there as a top out. The thing with micro TIF, again, it's similar to TIF. So it first has to run through council, so it has to run through me to get to council. And then it has to run to the assessor's office for them to verify that, yes, they have done the improvements, do the assessment again. And then it ends up going to the city finance department because they'll receive the money from the treasurer's office at the county, and then they will have to then send that money to the applicant. So there's a lot of staff time. So, I don't know what's fair, but $50, in my opinion, just isn't enough. I would say maybe $200, something like that. Because remember, this goes on for 15 years, so you always have somebody monitoring this. Every time a tax payment comes in, it has to be mailed out. So there is staff time, and I don't think you could ever charge a fee that would cover your staff time. But I think $50, that's 2 hours worth of work from somebody, and it takes a little longer than 2 hours.
Judy, how much of North Platte has been declared blighted and substandard, percentage-wise?
21.5%, but we did take a large area that was already designated as blighted and substandard and did an extreme blight study on it. So that took a portion of it out. So I think before we did that, we were at about 27%.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned that one of the things that is required for the micro TIF is to have the assessor come in at the end of the project and value the completed project. Do you have that requirement in other TIF projects that are not micro TIF?
No, those are a little bit different because they're projects, kind of with those TIF projects, they go on for a bit. The assessor does have to, the assessor are always assessing properties, but I don't believe that they go, when you have a regular TIF project, that they go out and verify that all the improvements are done. That just comes through with the notice of division of taxes. And they verify that, they put up a building or they put in a road, but they don't actually, I don't believe that they actually go out and verify that each of those projects is completed. That's just verified by receipts that they get.
So your inspection by the assessor is more to verify that the project is what they said they were going to do, rather than...
Yep, pretty much, yep.
It's not for purposes of setting the new value.
Well, I mean, they do both, but yeah, they go out and do the inspection, make sure that they can verify that everything was completed, and then, of course, they will do their job as the assessor and assess the property.
Judy, I'm gonna pick your brain a little bit. We talked a little bit when we talked earlier about other things in North Platte. For instance, you've got a new Walmart distribution center, I believe it was, and a new packing plant, which brought a tremendous number of jobs to North Platte. And you've got some TIF projects that you said have created approximately 1,500 lots. But are those lots actually all platted and developed? I'm just curious.
No. So North Platte didn't do a lot of TIF projects up until about 2002. And the one TIF project that really started kicking off our economic development was the Walmart DC. So it's not really new. It's been around since about 2002. But that really started kicking off the communities. I'm feeling a little bit more favorable for TIF projects because they created, I think about 320 new jobs when the Walmart DC came to town. And that kind of sparked a little bit of an interest. North Platte still has a lot of naysayers when it comes to TIF projects, as any community does. But that one really kind of started it off. And then we've had other commercial developments using TIF. Menards was one that used TIF. The new beef plant, which was just recently built, it's not quite finished. They started operating, but they have a few more things left. But they're one of the most recent ones. But we started out mostly with commercial because of economic development, job creation. Well, then we hadn't really got our feet wet with residential TIF up until just maybe the last 10 or 12 years or so, because there was, again, you can kind of sell TIF for commercial development because you know that they're going to do job creation, sales tax increases, things like that. Residential development's a little bit harder because, you sit there and you think, okay, what is my community getting from this housing development? Because you can see what you're getting from job creation. It's kind of hard to visualize what you're getting from a housing development. Yes, you will eventually get your increase in tax, but the thing with housing, too, is you have people who are in your community who then have a place to live, who are then paying sales tax, they're buying new cars, they're buying, clothes at the local store, those types of things. So that's where you really see your impact with housing. So we have about 1,500 lots that are in a TIF project. And no, not all of them are platted and developed. We have one that is fully developed, and I think it was 36 lots. And then we have another one that is partially developed. It was actually 46 units, and it's probably about halfway complete. And then we have, one that is very much in the infancy stage. It is just starting to put in some infrastructure. And that one is probably the largest development. It's about 850 doors. It's a mixture of apartments and single family. They are the ones that are also in the area that has been declared extremely blight, and they're using what we call vertical TIF, which falls under that workforce housing. So they can't go over $350,000 a door for a single family, and then I think it's something like $250 a door for apartments or something. It's something like that. I'd have to go back and look at state statute and see how workforce housing reads. And then since they are declared extreme blight, it also opens them up a little bit for some NIFA funding, which helps that out too. But no, there's about 3 projects that are maybe partially complete, partially platted lots. And as they sell, they continue to plat a few more lots in that area.
And you mentioned a frustration that despite having that many lots in a TIF project, the house build out is a couple at a time.
Yeah, it's slow. It's very slow. We see a lot of apartments go up pretty quickly, and that I think is because the developers find that as a quicker, cheaper, easier way to get a return on investment. And then your single-family houses they seem to be coming a lot more slowly. We have one really good development that is going, and they'll usually do about 4 or 5 lots a year. They do the lots, build the houses, get them sold, and then they go on to the next one. But yeah, your single family is really slow to develop.
What are those they're developing? What are those selling for?
Think about 285.
And even those are selling slow.
Yes.
Wow. Yep. And we talked earlier about what you would like to see for a starter home, and you said somewhere in that 180 to 250, but.
Yeah, I don't know how you get there, but I do have 2 college graduated kids that did move back to North Platte, and they got decent jobs. I can't say they're, remarkable jobs because they're paying around the, $40,000, $50,000 a year range. And for someone like that to become a first-time home buyer, you can't get a loan for $285,000. So I am trying to focus on, and I don't know how any community is ever going to get it done, but the prime dollar amount that we see sell really quickly is somewhere between the $175,000 to $200,000 home, and those are tough to build. Those are really tough to build new, and if you buy them used, a lot of times they have a need for micro TIF because they need to be rehabilitated a little bit, and that's really tough. And I'm not sure how you're ever going to get those prices down to that range.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
No? All right, Judy, I appreciate it.
Do we?
Yeah, no problem.
Should we
I hope
see
I
if
gave you
the
some
crowd- do
good
they have
information.
questions, or is that okay? All right. Thank you so much for your help, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, that concludes that item. The next item on the agenda is public comment. We had a request from a council person previously to do public comment on each item, but since we had 2 back-to-back calls here, we opted not to do that this time, but we'll go ahead and, if anybody wants to comment, please feel free to come forward, sign in, and comment. Not seeing any, I think we're adjourned.
Does anyone in our group have
any thoughts on
Great point.
what we just talked about, or anything, either one of those topics? It's unrealistic. I mean, to build houses, my thought is to build anything new, you're really not gonna get what, if you surveyed people that are making $50,000 a year, what they'll call affordable housing. But that's where micro TIF might be an option in a community like ours to be able to solve some of those problems, so the transition or the starter homes more. And I also feel like maybe if that's paired, there are certain blocks, neighborhoods that have one or two very decayed houses that probably devalue the entire neighborhood in a lot of ways. And so if there was a way to figure out that to make those true affordable. The negative on that sometimes would be you're really not solving the problem if you rehabilitate these houses and then they're bought by, a landlord who's just gonna turn around and rent them out. Yeah, I mean, it's maybe affordable rent, but it's really not gonna solve the true problem, is trying to get that person that's making $50,000 a year, that's single or whatever household income of $70,000, $75,000, $80,000 a year into the housing market. I really fear that personally. That's one of the reasons why I really agreed to do this, is even though it's a really hard problem to solve, if we can't figure out how to help that or figure out that person, in 15 years, there's a generation of people that are just not going to be able to get in the housing market.
That's a great point, and maybe it'd be a good idea just to go around and have everybody just, if you've got a thought concerning what you heard today, what stood out to you, I think having each one of us talk about what struck us helps all of us learn. So maybe I'll put Zach on the spot and start with you. And is there anything that you heard today that really caught your attention?
It was good to hear from Columbus and how they had their approach built out on that and the legwork that they did. They were pretty ambitious with it, and to their credit, I think they pulled it off pretty wonderfully. The 24% blighted and substandard, and to be honest, I don't know where Norfolk sits on that, but that's a quarter of your town basically that's blighted and substandard. That seems a little shocking to me. So that really kind of caught me off guard, to be completely honest. So.
What is that number for Norfolk?
Norfolk, what are we about, 27, 28?
I'd have to look. I don't think it's that much now. After we annexed that big annexation, that lowered that percentage quite a bit. I think it's a little over 20-something, but I'd have to.
Okay. Maybe next meeting, can we find out what that is? Okay, thanks. Gina, thoughts?
Just a lot of interesting pieces between Columbus and North Platte, is like Zach mentioned, some of the pieces that Columbus put in to affect it's working for them, but I think they're pretty stringent on some of them she said that too, that it's not gonna work for a lot of developers. It works for this particular project, but a lot of those covenants wouldn't work in the general scheme of things. That was one thing. Just hearing some different, like the micro TIF, I really wasn't too familiar with that, so getting some insight on that was kind of nice as well.
John?
I'm thinking about micro TIF. That may be a good opportunity. Much of our blight in town is probably, we have houses that are dilapidated, deteriorated. We have a lot of property, not much anymore, but there was a lot of property downtown that was deteriorated. Micro TIF would be, as long as the administration isn't too costly and isn't too burdensome, micro TIF would be a great opportunity to just go around town and just open doors up. And I think it'd be a great selling point for home buyers, young home buyers. I know they probably don't want older homes, but if you promote that right, that'd be a great opportunity.
It's my belief too on micro TIF, if you refurbish or rehab one of those structures, it could add valuation to the neighbors, the whole neighborhood, which has residual payback as well.
It'd be a great opportunity for young people it's something to look into. I mean, really entice them to look into taking other than brand-new properties, which are basically almost unaffordable at that level.
It really gets back to what TIF was intended for, and that is to remediate blighted property, and I agree. Jan?
I don't have anything to add other than I think it's, my concern would be if we make too many regulations and so forth, it's gonna really burden our staff on trying to administer things like micro-TIF and you know, plus all the other, so that is a concern I would have, that we don't micromanage something to the extent that, you know, I look at some of that micro-TIF and I'd look at it and go, I'm not gonna be subject to those restrictions of covenants, you know. There were some restrictions I thought were pretty off-putting.
Roger?
I think that with the land bank and micro-TIF, we can incorporate those two items and kind of come up with an outside shell of what can be done and how it can be done cheaper. Might be a way to go.
Bob?
Frankly, I found things in both of them that would be good for, I think, for the city of Norfolk. I am a little concerned about micro-TIF and the requirements there. Like Jan said, make it very difficult for some people, or a lot of people, to be able to get into affordable housing. I like the idea of selling homes or property on a lower end basis so that younger people can get into them. I also like some of the requirements that came out of Columbus, you know, of giving you X amount of time to get these projects done, because that sitting out there for 5, 10, 15 years or whatever it is just a waste of people's time and money, and I don't think that's of any value. So I wouldn't mind seeing a whole development. You know, I think that would be a good thing.
I agree. Troy?
Yeah, I mean, I'd point out that I think the Norfolk is doing some of these things that we're hearing as well. We don't always, it's not as publicized necessarily. And one other thing, when we visited with Judy yesterday, and I forgot to ask this, I meant to, but we asked that if the lack of housing, it has hurt or is hurting their economic development, being able to draw in businesses. And she agreed that that was a problem. So it's obviously a problem that is shared not just here, it's everywhere. But otherwise, I mean, I think that both are interesting, so.
I thought both presentations were great. I was very intrigued by Columbus. I liked a lot of their restrictions and their covenants. If we're going to give out significant amounts of tax dollars, I want the benefit to come back to the citizens. And by rent restrictions, by price restrictions on the homes, I think that forces the benefit back to the citizens, and that's an important component in my mind. I really like the micro-TIF as an option to truly remediate real blight that we have in the community. I think that's got some great benefits, but you know, Jan brings up a great point with the maintenance and the time involved in that. Certainly that's got to be a consideration, and Judy did mention that they can put a limit on the number of projects that they'll do per year, and maybe that's something to consider too. So, Steve?
I kind of echo what Bob said, was that I'd like to see if TIF is awarded, the builder must start within 6 months and complete within 2 years. But in Columbus, she was talking about using $1 million in sales tax revenue. I don't feel Norfolk has that to use right now because our sales tax has to go to the police department expansion. So we're going to have to do something different if we want to maybe go along with what Columbus is doing and have that money come back to the city. That'd be great. But I just don't think we have that sales tax revenue right now.
Scott?
Yeah, I think the micro TIF has a big opportunity. There's all sorts of vacant lots around Norfolk where houses have been torn down because they were bad for the neighborhood. I think there's a huge opportunity to fill in some of those spots. There are some dilapidated homes and other commercial structures that I think that could work very well for. I enjoyed reading through the Columbus documents. I like the covenants to get them built and buy the lots back if they don't do it. The price of the houses and apartments, I didn't have a problem with. I guess what I didn't like of their process, but it's their deal, was the rent restrictions. I mean, I'm kind of a free enterprise kind of a guy, and the developer is still Columbus was the developer, but the builder is still at risk on that. So it takes the right fit to make that work, but I wasn't a fan of that rent restriction thing. But otherwise, I liked a lot of them. So a lot of both the proposals. So.
Clint?
I think the Columbus thing is really interesting from the standpoint of when you look at when those covenants were put in place, and you think about from the time they started that, what happened with interest rates and how that affects all of the things that they're dealing with. I also think when you asked the question about have you had to buy any of the lots back, I think when that gets a little older, if you were to talk, it'd be interesting to talk to Tara a year from now and see what they've experienced about the building getting started and all of that going through. We had done some of that when I was in Hastings, about 70 lots, I think, and we didn't have quite as slick a way with we had it in purchase agreements, but the covenants weren't quite as slick. But I think that all worked out, and they're telling me all the houses got built, but they had a much better interest environment than what they've dealt with. And the other thing I was going to comment on, Jim, the covenants that you were talking about with Tara about rent controls, that first of all, that legislation wasn't passed when they put those in place. Secondly, that legislation applied to ordinances that the city just passed that covered things. And thirdly, there was an exception in that for voluntary provisions. So I think those covenants are not affected by those at all, and I think that if they can otherwise work, they're on the table.
Great point. And I'll just follow up one other thing that I thought about as you were talking, and that was the fact that they sent out 70 RFP packages and got 18 submittals. That's huge. That's a huge amount of interest. And if they've got that much interest in that project, and they broke ground in spring of '94, and they've got commitments for everything but 9 doors, that's enormous. I mean, you talk about solving a housing issue, and then they do have those covenants in place. They were able to accomplish that with that project and hold those rents so that they're affordable for the people that we want to be able to enjoy those that can't afford the higher rental rates or the higher prices. So if they can do it, why can't we? Anyway.
I just think that, that's why I asked Columbus if they did just the Tiffany thing or whatever it is. You could easily combine a multi-year project, or the Columbus model with the North Platte model and do both and accomplish a great deal for the community. I think that's something that we really ought to consider.
So something that probably would be challenge what Columbus does, and I'm not saying I agree with it necessarily, but should government compete with private sector? But if private sector is not or can't build them, you're not really competing with them. I mean, the way Columbus is doing it, there is still independent builders. You could build 3 of those houses. I mean, so it's not open, you're not locked out. You have an opportunity to get involved to do that. So I think that that's the workaround, but that was initially, as I spoke with certain people, kind of initial feedback that I had, but again, that's just thoughts on that.
Anybody else want, any other comments? Okay.
There was just a lot of oversight on those proposals that I think we can bring to the table. You gotta be careful. We don't wanna run our builders or developers. I think there's a lot of stuff that we can use.
And I maybe, I wonder if we do we do an RFP with the enticement of TIF? And try and get submittals like they did and tell them that we're gonna have covenants and see what comes back? I mean, we've never, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like we let the developers come to us and say this is what they're gonna do, and then we say yes or no. I don't know that we actually initiate and say, put something out and send it to 70 people and say, this is what we want. We want single-family homes, we want them in this price range, we want apartments of this size. They specifically said the size that they wanted. So they target what they want for the community rather than letting the developer say what they're gonna build.
The city is the developer. That's the difference.
Correct,
You're
correct.
not gonna find another developer who's going to magnificently say, I'm gonna do this for you, Norfolk.
Yeah,
You
so,
know?
but
That's the
if,
problem.
so,
He
yeah,
is
for
the
those,
developer.
Steve.
Just a
Steve-
second, Steve.
Sure.
But if we're handing out money and we're using that as a carrot, I just wonder if there's a different view there that if we're saying, hey, there's X number of dollars of TIF money as a carrot, and then we actually say this is what we want and do it proactively. It would be new, it would be different. I think there's an opportunity there.
Jim, I think we need to, before we even get to that point, I think we need to do some study of where this town is going and what it's gonna do.
That's the housing study, absolutely.
Yeah, the housing study has to get done
100%.
to run this thing, yeah.
Exactly.
We may be doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing right now, if the housing study shows that.
Well, yeah,
A
and,
new housing study.
you know, and I, that's one thing I was gonna ask Tara and I didn't, you know, I assume they had a housing study and they said this is what we need.
She referred to a housing.
Yeah, and so, yeah, we don't wanna jump into a project until we know what we need. Great point.
And we did talk with Judy from North Platte on housing study. They're kind of in the process of doing one
Yes.
right now. They marry that along with a community survey as well. So there's a housing study along with a community survey, then they kind of marry them together. And they're behind their housing study, in her opinion, the last housing study. So the pace is not where they need to be for the growth that they're seeing and expecting either. So that is why they started TIFing single family and, residential where they hadn't for a long time, so.
Steve, go ahead.
Steve Ramus, city engineer, city of Norfolk. Really good conversations, and based on your conversations, I can tell you're starting to consume the concept of what TIF is. Just a couple things, and you've kind of hit on them. TIF is about meeting the needs of your housing studies and meeting whatever those needs are in terms of housing, and it's a tool and a resource. A couple things. We've been looking at what Hastings did. Clinton referred to that here a little bit ago. We've been looking at that, had some conversation with the engineers that worked on that project over there. It was single family, and likewise, we've explored the concept and had some conversation with one of our subcommittees, our council subcommittees. It's about risk, and what you were hearing today from Tara and Columbus was about risk. The covenants that they were putting in place was controlling the risk. When developers come and talk to you about the risk they're taking on, the risk of putting in streets, the risk of all of that is quite significant. When a developer comes in and they take on that risk, they're not, when they get that TIF contract in place, they're out there building houses right away. They're building their, they get there's the bigger TIF project, but then they come in and they might, like on a Legacy Bend, they're getting smaller chunks. But once they get that smaller chunk under a TIF contract, they're moving forward on that right away because they're the builder and they understand that they need to get infrastructure in the ground right away to start capturing those TIF dollars and paying that back. When it's the city, and in our conversations with our council and subcommittee, it's about the risk. Are we willing as a community to buy land, to put in the infrastructure and take that risk? And then once you sell off a parcel for either single family or multifamily, you want that developed right away. And that was the function, at least, of some of those items that they were putting in place over there, was they want to ensure that once that sells, that developer's moving right away with that. But when the city's not the developer per se, or the ones that are putting in the infrastructure, the developer's consuming all of that burden of that cost, and so they don't need the covenant. They have the risk, and so they're wanting to get that risk moving right away. But I just wanted to let you know that those are some conversations that we are having. From my chair, and I think a couple other chairs within the city, we think we can manage that. We'd like to give it a try. Find the right project, the right piece of land, and move a project forward like that, and see what we can do. I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. We are adjourned.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Oh, sorry. Is there a second? We're adjourned.